New York City's crisis with immigrants, illegal and otherwise, has entered a new phase. Thousands are starting to move into the city's newly opened tent complex on Randall's Island. The shelter site, which was controversially built on top soccer fields for kids, and now those kids have been displaced again, just like they were during COVID. Now it's been expanded to house 3,000 people. And the project is set to cost New York taxpayers $20 million per month. But New York's crisis is not exclusive to the Big Apple. Buffalo is now evicting 44 people from its dormitory buildings through its college system. And that's raising concerns about student safety. But some local activists are going after the move as prejudiced and wrong. Now some New Yorkers are calling out the failure at our southern border. Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa was arrested while protesting this weekend, taken away in handcuffs.
Close the border! Close the border! Close the border!
Placed under arrest on the charge of disorderly conduct. If you do not cooperate and accompany the arresting officer to the prisoner transport vehicle,
So, Bill, what do you make of what's going on?
Where do you begin, right, guys? The Roosevelt Hotel is a mess. Somebody called it a slum last week. I don't think it's too far removed from that, unfortunately. I think at some point the Roosevelt Hotel will be cleaned up. I think at some point, someday, Randall's Island will be cleaned up. I think someday, somehow, the border will be concealed more than it is today. Here's what disturbs me the most. Fiscal year currently 2023. We're 11 months in. We have encountered 146 people on the terror watch list.
Yeah, that we know of.
That is more than every year combined going back to 2017.
Yeah.
Last year it was 98, right? How many was it in 2021? 15. 2023. 2019, 0. 2018, 6, 2017, 2. We had an entire congressional commission that was assigned the job of trying to figure out how Saudi hijackers made their way to San Diego, California. How much time and money and national toil did we put into that? And now you got this. You got 146. You got another month, ladies. How high's the number going to go? What are we thinking? There is no nation in this world that runs their border the way we run ours.
Lily.
Well, when you look at talking about other nations, countries like, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, who have friendly migration policies, 80% of those migrants come to those countries because of jobs. Here is asylum seekers or family ties, which have to flip that script. There are 1.4 million workers on H-1B visas that are waiting because of the backlog. Those are professionals, they have jobs, they have hiring managers that are waiting for them to get back into the workplace, while we are trying to sort out what now has costed, the latest number I saw was $150.7 billion a year for the state, local, and federal expenses of what migrants cause to this nation. And here we have fires, natural disasters, backlogs of people that do have legitimate reasons and approval for staying in this country for work, yet we cannot get, our arms around it. So border security with a sensible and working immigration reform is what we need.
And we're not saying the quiet part out loud, Kaylee. We're not saying that we haven't just legitimized, we are complicit in sex trafficking in this country. We have ushered in law breaking like never before. It's breaking the law to come across our border between the checkpoints and to gain access illegally, obviously. But the cartels are running that border, and they're running what happens north of that border to young children that we may never know the names of, but they're suffering in the United States of America.
Yeah, Heritage cited a statistic that as many as 60% of kids at the border are trafficked. So think about that. I mean, these are people who are showing up in the most heinous of conditions, vulnerable kids who are trafficked because we have a president enabling it. And you've got that issue. And then you've also got American children on Randall's Island. Guess who's going to be housed in that facility? Single adult men at the expense of children who use that for their soccer field. That's a trend we saw here in Manhattan, where for a bit of time, it was very brief because parents rebelled, you had single adult men in gymnasiums and the kids being displaced yet again. Same thing in Brooklyn. The kid always comes last, whether it's the illegal immigrant child or the American child, in favor of, in this case, single adult men.
Well, and what I would add to that, because I interviewed one of the parents, was not just that the American kids were displaced, they were right on the same property. They were right next door to the gymnasium. I mean, Randall's Island is a bit more remote, but it's thousands of people who use that, Cheryl.
At what point does New York City and other cities decide that it is no longer feasible to be a sanctuary city? At what point does New York City decide that the right to shelter does not economically work in this country? We have watched since COVID began, the tax base of New York City flee, a $12 billion price tag, according to the mayor of New York City. Now what's happening in Buffalo with the students? The parents stepped in and said, no, they need to go, again, because of the sexual assaults. The MS-13 gang member over the weekend that was caught at the border. The gunfire that was reported on over the weekend at the border, coming from the Mexico side at Border Patrol. And I'll leave it here really quick. The mental health and the lives of Border Patrol agents, they have done nothing but suffer. Alcoholism, divorce, suicide, it goes on and on. And at what point do we start to care about our border agents? Because at this point, it doesn't seem like the Biden administration does.
They are 24/7 first responders to a national disaster created by this president. Real quickly, what you said about terrorism, though, that strikes at the heart of every American. Because those are the numbers that we are being told. And we don't know the demographics of these people. Right. We don't know the crimes they've committed. They're terrorists.
Right. If you're in ISIS and you're in eastern Syria and you know the border's open, what are you going to do? Well, of course you're going to give a shot to put 20 guys in the country. Maybe 10 of them make it, and that's 10 we don't want.